Welcome to Inspiring Possible. I'm Christy Pennison, former stuck person turned therapist and dream consultant. Are you feeling stuck, overwhelmed, uncertain, or just need a little inspiration? Then I want to help you gain the clarity, confidence, and courage to create possibilities and live a life you love. Because, folks, life's too short to be miserable. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode. This is going to be a really cool conversation. I can already let you know and key you in on that. But if you are someone that is maybe in life wanting to actually find a little bit more inner peace and maybe also inner alignment, maybe you feel like there is something that you just can't seem to find the calm in life about. And you are just like, I am tired of this rat race or tired of always feeling maybe drained or just unsettled in yourself. And maybe you are looking to dive in a little bit more spiritually to find that peace and calm and inner connectiveness that maybe you've been yearning for a minute. Then I have the guest for you today that I'm actually super interested in this conversation and where it's going to lead because, there are different ways to find your path to healing and wholeness. But I find that when you can find that place, then you can really step into your fullest potential. And so I have someone here with me today who has really done a lot of innovative work. And I'm going to let her tell you a little bit about herself, but she has really done this work herself and then also supported other people in doing this work. And so I want to welcome to the show Isabelle Daikeler.
Thank you so much. That was a great intro. I really like it. It really resonates with all of us. Yeah.
Yeah, all of us. Well, listen, I know we were talking before we pushed the record button that you may have actually resisted your way into this type of work. So maybe you can tell me a little bit about your story and your journey. Because I also know when you were younger, you had an event that kind of maybe reshaped the trajectory of your life as well.
Yeah. I had many events. And it's funny, I always say you tend to look at the big events, and people often tend to look for big shifts. But actually, the big shifts happen after many little mini shifts. And you perhaps are not aware of them, but it's every choice of every day that chips away at the armor, and then eventually there's a big shift, and you remember the big shift and you talk about the big shifts, but actually it's everything in between that really
It's
made the shift.
true.
Yes.
I'm glad that you pointed that out because I don't often think about that when we're talking about people's stories, but it really is. I always say this because in the line of work that I do, people don't just show up with their stuff that they're needing to figure out how
Mm.
to move through, right? It didn't happen overnight. You got there over a period of
Mm.
time due to different things that happened, in that time span. So
Yeah.
so okay, so you're saying that there was also some micro shifts that happened along the
Yeah.
way that really kind of shaped where you're at right now.
So obviously I'm not going to go into the zillion micro shifts unless you have 4 hours, but um but I'm sure people relate to that. Like if you look back, especially as you get older, you can start looking back and you can see, oh yeah, that was a much bigger deal than I thought it was. Or that was a much bigger shift or path or a switch than I thought it was. Looking back, I realized this is where it really started happening. So I'm sure a lot of us are like nodding our heads, like that's so true.
Yeah.
So, but for the sake of this conversation and perhaps just giving people an idea of where I come from and why I'm here. So my family background is in the film and TV writing industry. So I was expected to be doing that, and for many years in my younger years, I did that and I studied that, and I thought that's all I could do. So basically, the message I picked up was I wasn't good at anything else, and that's what I'm supposed to be doing. Because literally, I think I'm maybe the only one or another person, grandmother, I think, or grandfather, that's not in the, in, like, it's just, I'm just the black sheep. But when I made the choice, which I didn't realize was a big deal, but when I actually made the choice here in LA to do something completely different, I was really scared. So I was always athletic. I always loved movement, and eventually I decided to be a personal trainer. And that was a 180 from the world that I came from. And I was really scared because I really didn't know anything about teaching, anything about physical fitness. I was just very active, very into it, very into health, nutrition. I was into these things naturally. And at some point, I decided to switch and go to school and study that. So I did that. And my first big shift was when I had a car crash and I was told I was going to limp for the rest of my life, which was a no no. There's no way I was going to accept that. And I fell in love with the body and the psyche at that point because I realized that if I gave myself only to the rehabilitation centers that existed at the time, indeed, perhaps I would continue to limp. But I had to look into, for the first time, sports psychology, like what was happening to me emotionally as I was rehabilitating my body, the connection between the two. And by doing that, I got myself back on my feet, no limp, and people noticed. And I started getting a clientele through that experience. And then, cut to several years later, the other big shift was, I think now they would call it something around the world of chronic fatigue syndrome. So I had that, but at the time, nobody understood what that was about. Um, Within 2 years, I was unable to walk, exhausted all the time, in pain all the time, couldn't work, lost my clientele, had to borrow money to pay my rent, my food, spend money. I didn't have insurance, spend money on doctors trying to get better. All they told me is it's in my head again and gave me an antidepressant. I tried it once, made me nuts, never again. And because it was not for me. and and then really dived into the emotions. And then somehow I was led to Koreatown here in LA. And these little ladies that barely spoke English kind of taught me somehow how to choose and cook and prepare adaptogen mushrooms and adaptogen herbs and root vegetables and plants and all that world of healing from that aspect, from food, which at the time was not really talked about here in LA. Actually, it was not around my world, perhaps someone else, but not my world. And so I went to my little box, my little place, and I started cooking all these things. And it took hours and hours. I would make these thick potions that tasted disgusting, and I would drink them. And within 3 months or so, I started feeling better. So that led me in the world of adaptogen mushrooms and herbs, especially. And I started studying on my own and really understanding what that was about, which was also another connection to the magic of the body, the energy fields, the emotions, the psyche. When you go deep into the mushroom world, it brings in all that. So that was another aspect that glued itself to me. And then what I did is I created some kind of shake, which back in those days, they were not really shakes. It was not delicious by any mean, but it was part of my new arsenal where if people were open to it, I would make a concoction for them on a regular basis. And people felt good and they liked it. And then, cut to many, many years later, I had my boy 17 years ago. And then when I gave birth, I was unable to really walk for at least 10 years, 10 to 12 years. And that's
Really?
when, yeah, that was a trip. And that was a big turnaround. I just gave birth. I thought I was going to be the kind of mother that would backpack, go hike with my kid, and of course, I could not even carry him. And I ended up, I don't know how far I can go with your audience, but this is when channeling came down. This is when I was doing
Mhm.
body work. I was doing something called Chinate Sang, Chinese modality, but the healing world just happened. So the channeling just happened. My hands wanted to hover and work with energy just happened. And that was not part of what I was familiar with. So it was my own processing of all that, which took years. And it led me to what I do now, which is um, energy work. As we spoke, I host sound baths. I have a tool that's called the harmonic egg, which is sound and light work. And it's very simple. A lot of breathing together with my client, a lot of honest conversation, and the space is set up for that. You know, to so that people can feel their feelings, perhaps from a safer place, so they can allow it, and conversation that will organically stem from there. And that's my work.
Yeah. Well, and let's talk about this. What do you think is the biggest things that you have learned can really help people break through some even the hardest challenges they might face? Because it sounds like for you had not only some like emotional challenges, but physical challenges, things that your body was happening to you that you're like, I have no basis of what could be going on. And so that took you to like seek out, okay, what are some other ways of healing that I may have not been taught or considered before? I think it's also fascinating that you even went to Koreatown. I'm curious to know
Yeah.
what led you there, but it sounds
I
like
don't
you were in this
remember. I don't
seeking
remember
journey
how
of
I got
just
there.
trying to find out how to heal,
Yeah, I
essentially.
don't I don't have a clue. Like, I don't remember. I just know
Yeah,
at some point, somehow, I landed there, but I don't
yeah.
remember how I got there. I wish I did. It'd be fun, but
But
yeah.
isn't that incredible that sometimes you don't even know? You're like, "How did I get here?" It's just I was led
That's what
here,
I
somehow.
mean.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I mean, the little moments that are so important. That moment, whoever, whatever led me there, that was the turning point, right? Being there was the outcome, but something must have happened that led me there, yeah.
yeah.
So I think what there's one thing that's interesting is, all these help that we have that have bullet points, you know, A, B, C, do this, this, this. And it's funny because I feel like human nature is anything but bullet points. We're so messy and we insist on being linear, but our emotional and spiritual self and even psychological self is anything but linear and organized. It's very messy.
Do you
So
think it's just because people want an explanation? They just wanna understand, and if they can break it down in a linear format, then for some reason, then there might be an answer
yes, I
to my
think some
problem.
people resonate better with
Mhm.
linear in a format, and others it's limiting,
Yeah.
right? I think there's an in between that we can merge the two,
Arrive.
the
Yeah,
middle
yeah.
road, like the Buddha says. For me, when I hit these really challenging points, what I've noticed is the resistance disappeared. So I was in a place where my ego, I call the ego what I know, the world of the knowing. So your childhood, right? What you gather, the tools that you gather to survive or thrive or anything in between your childhood, you gathered a way to relate to your peers and your environment, a way to survive it, a way to get the love and attention and that you need to survive, right? As a child, you're completely helpless and it all depends on the people around you. So that's the world of the ego, of the thinking, of the mind. So I don't really necessarily mean it in a negative way at all, but it's the known world, what your brain tape recorded, right? And then there's another aspect of you that sort of surrounds that. So what happened for me, and I hope people get that, is I couldn't, from the ego, from the known, from what I had, my tools that I was conscious of, I couldn't fix it. So when I couldn't walk after the birth of my child, just to give a concrete example, I was very good at rehabilitation. I rehabilitated athletes. I was really good at it. And I had good connection with people even better than me. And I reached out to everybody and myself and nothing worked. So it was very frightening because I felt completely helpless. And it was a very long time, a decade. And the concept that that was it, that's it, I won't walk. Like it
Yeah,
just was
I mean, a decade's a
crazy.
long time. I would just and which is fascinating about your story is you're right. I think that there's certain people, I mean, everybody has their own journeys, but that would just been like, "This is my reality." But I guess there was something that was continuing to push and lead you to say, "I don't know if I wanna accept this as" yeah,
The opposite. So
yeah,
what that look what's that's my point. So I love that you said that. It would look like that. It may look like that, but the truth of my inner experience in it is when everybody went to dinner and I had a nanny. She would carry Danny, my son, and do the thing. They went to dinner and we were in Kauai and I laid on the floor and I looked up. I had never really prayed. For me, it was lovely and it was life, and I didn't have a specific concept of God, but I liked the idea of it, and I loved it when I see it in other people, but I hadn't brought it the concept. The concept actually is wrong because it's not the I didn't gravitate toward specific storyline or books, but the mystery of life was mysterious enough for me to believe that there was an energy, something that was beyond all of us. And I was attracted to that, but that was it. At that moment, I laid on the ground and I cried so hard and I out loud said, "Help me. I don't know what to do. I have no answer. I'm so scared." If it was not of my son, I would be like saying, "Take me, like I'm done." My son and I'll never leave, right? So so it was a complete surrender. So I didn't fight the physical pain, which was conscious and acute and constant. I surrendered. There was no more resistance to what was happening, to the moment. This is where I'm at. I'm scared out of my mind. I'm in pain. I feel like I can't continue like this. Help me. And it was my first true prayer from a complete surrendered place. My ego was surrendered. I knew I didn't know how to fix it. So help me. And that's when everything turned around. And I look at that moment as this is where unconsciously I picked up what I do now. Meaning, when I talk to people that are dealing with intense pain, emotional, physical, or all of it, it's I'm there with them, helping them to not fight it. Because people think if you surrender, it means you do nothing. It's not that. You're not aimlessly fighting what is happening. Eckhart Tolle talks about that in a beautiful way. The present moment, surrendering to it. And that's what I learned for the first time. And with the tools that I have my place that I call authenticity, that's what we do. And that's the tool that to me is the most important is you breathe through the discomfort, whatever that breath is for each individual. It doesn't have to be complicated. You don't have to go to a seminar and learn complicated breathing technique. Those are wonderful, but you don't have to. I like tools that are with you, constant. They're yours. You're born with it. And that ability to let go of the fear of the unknown, the surrender to the present challenge that is with you, the breathing and the acknowledging and the letting it happen is the first step out. You can't skip over it. You have to move through it, but there's a way to move through it that then brings you to these outcomes that are different when your life changes. This is when you can use the hardship in order to grow as a human being. And it's not easy. There's nothing easy about that, but it's the most effective. Because once you start learning that, it's almost like a you don't need that many other tools because out of that moment of pure surrender to the physical pain or whatever that is, and the breath, I will call it God. Hopefully, we don't get hung up on what God and what book, just the power, the sparks that makes us alive. That spark now has space to come in and 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 move and give you the next step. You get an aha moment, you get an understanding. And then in that spirit, you have great conversation with whomever, you know, is holding your hand or holding space for you. in those moments. Sometimes you're alone. I was alone. God is what held my hand. I hope this makes sense.
It makes complete sense to me, and I love when people can articulate sometimes experiences that I've had in a way
Mm.
that kind of just can connect that known world because it is an experience. Even in myself, there's been many times I can even remember as a small child going through. My parents were getting divorced, and I can remember even at that age crying and feeling like I had a similar experience. Like, just help me! I can't make it through this.
Mhm.
I don't understand why that's happening, even at a very small, like, I mean, I must have been 10, 9 or 10, right?
Especially at a very small time in your
Yeah,
life. Yeah.
10 saying, like, I just this point of surrender, I can't at 10 years old, I can't change
Mm.
what's happening, I don't understand it, but there is this incredible I love how you said for the spark to have space, and regardless of what somebody's belief systems are about spiritual realm, spirituality, I do. I have experienced things in my life when I can surrender. Honestly, just this morning, I took some time to do some reflection work. I sat outside. I had my lovely cup of coffee, my little journal, really just trying to be present in the here and now. I was watching the birds. There was little
Mm.
squirrels. I could hear the crow caw and it was a little bit that and I was like, okay, well, there's space for crows too. Looking at the tree that stood in my yard, and there is just this, I guess, overwhelming kind of sense of everything will be okay,
Yeah.
even though there might still be present challenges. I think that surrendering to what you may be resisting is the way through. But it, like you said, it's not always easy to move through. It's just like kind of like I can imagine somebody swimming in a rapid that's going,
Right.
you're trying to swim upstream. And honestly, if you just lay back, then you might get carried someplace where you can actually get to the shore and get out of the water.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
I
and
think
sometimes you
sometimes
really crash.
yeah,
Sometimes part of that is crashing.
yeah, crash and
Yes.
hopefully somebody else pulls me out. I mean, hello.
Yes. Yes.
But it sounds like for you, what you found in that moment was just a point of almost I can hear in your story, like, a point of almost helplessness, like, I can't
Yes.
I've done everything I can in my knowledge and my power and my understanding to try to find a way through this,
Yeah.
but I haven't been able to find it, and so it sounds like in that moment for you in that surrender is when you actually were able to feel maybe I don't know if this is correct, but feel like held or feel like you're able to have
Absolutely.
something bigger than you carry you through until that point of where you're able to be restored.
Yeah, and not that it wasn't before, right? It's always there, but I was fighting it. I thought I
So
knew
it's
how
like the
to do
acknowledgement.
everything. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the emotional body acknowledgement, not the thinking
Mhm.
mind. You can acknowledge a lot of things here, but nothing will happen until it drops into your heart and your guts, and then it
Yeah.
starts moving into your life. The body is a little slower, right? It's denser than energy. So the energy will move. You'll have these moments, these knowing moments, these pause like you just had, where all of it kind of coagulate and gels together it all and you merge with it. Like the human is not separate from, but you were in that moment this morning, you were in it. You were also like the tree could have equally looked at you and noticed you in that oneness, right? You're not
Mhm.
separate. And that oneness that everybody talks about for thousands of years, right? That is an incredible tool to allow, you can't use it, but you can allow it to be the main guidance. So then that aspect of all living beings is now collaborating with your beautiful brain and what you've learned. And there's nothing bad about it all. But there's a collaboration and the leader, I call it, that's the heart, right? That spark, that energy, that's the leader. And that's the difference of the hierarchy. Like suddenly you get it, like this space is bigger than I and wiser than I. And it feels so freaking good when I soak in it. So not, let me continue bathing in it more and more on a day to day basis so that, like you said, the current can lead. I can still be in my boat and help with my paddle, and I can decide to stop
I can
here.
float sometimes too. I can just float
Right?
along.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, well, so tell me, because I know you do this work with people a lot. This is now your life's work of really not only helping people, walk their own journey to find that awakening and their own transformation. But tell me a little bit about this harmonic egg
Yes.
that I'm just so intrigued about and how that incorporates into the work. And then what you've seen from people that have really been open to and surrendering to this experience that you that how this has helped transform some of the people
Yeah.
that you've worked with.
So the harmonic egg is quite big. It's literally in the shape of an egg, and it has angles, sacred geometry angles within the shell, basically. And you open it and you step in, and there's a beautiful, comfortable chair that lays all the way down to zero gravity, which is a very soothing place to be for the body. Very calming, restful place. That angle that feels good to the body. Um, and then there's a light on top and at the bottom, and there's music that circulates through the egg. And those songs are created for the egg by people that understand the healing power of music. It's layered and it's specific to helping your central nervous system. So it's a complete ants resets, which is so crucial because so much of our anxiety and stress reside at the body level, like an imprinting, and it's very challenging for us to shake it. So the body, sometimes the mind, like I said, can understand and understand that this is not so anymore, letting go, but the body is still in that fear survival state. So the egg is extremely effective at really bringing you to um, the rest and digest state, calm, almost like a deep meditation. You come out of it as if you were pretty good at meditating your whole life. But it's
So for
it's
those of that, if
music.
you have struggled with meditation, this,
It's
might
oh,
be a
it's
solution
great.
for you.
Yes. And so you close the doors and you sit there, and there's those beautiful songs and lights that were chosen by me and the person. Like, we talk about it, and then from what the intent is, I will choose a song, and I will choose lights that are based on chakra system. So chakra system is just certain points in the body that represents your belly, survival, the the emotion state, and then you have the root chakra, which is family survival. You have the heart, and you have your throat expression, right? The third eye, a little bit wiser, a bit more open to the things that we just discussed. So I'm not sure if people are familiar with the chakra system, but it's like blue and green are very soothing. Often red or orange will be used for family patterns, things like that. The heart is another color. So depending on what you're dealing with, you choose a song and a light combination that will be with the intent of what has been discussed. And you sit there for 39, 40 minutes, and then the music stops and 10 minutes of quiet to process the session. And then I get you out. And that's a harmonic egg session.
Yeah. So what have you seen people since you've integrated this into what you do? What have you seen? What are the things that you've seen people experience?
I've seen so many things. I have to be careful. You can't make any claim.
Right.
But definitely you're chill. That's one thing that, like, universally, you're so chill.
So if somebody's like kind of
Ye
anxious and a little bit
Exactly.
hyper aroused and they gonna go in there, they're gonna come out like looking like
Yes.
they just had the best sleep of their life.
Yes. Some people say, "Oh my god, I didn't know I could even my body could feel this calm." So it's a great point of reference. Now you know what that's like, right? But
Mm.
basically, because the person is so calm, they're not fighting imaginary monsters, meaning the mind is not busy showing you all the what if and the scary possible outcome that may and often never happen. So your body is calm, and in that very calm state, your body knows how to start healing and working on yourself. I don't have to teach it. It knows how to do that. We know the body is constantly in a repair state. So when you help it, when you calm it down like that, it has much more energy to start going to work. So because of that, I see so much, the outcome are so beautiful. Now, I have people that want to trick me. In other podcasts, I mentioned that they don't want to tell me where they're aching or what's happening. They just want to, if they don't tell me, then I can't trick them because they still think somehow I have something to do with it. It really is just sight and sound. And they go in and they come out and they'll say things like, "Wow, I didn't tell you, but I've had like a real bad shoulder pain for so long, and I've been doing rehab, but it's always coming back. And somehow in the egg, there was so much heat and tingling and all sorts of sensation exactly where I was hurting. And I don't know if it's in my mind, but it's kind of feeling better. But I'm blown away by the fact that it went right where what my problem was, right? So I get a lot of that. But it also depends on your ability to surrender once again. If you're busy fighting it, you're fighting it. It's not like the egg is not effective, it's that you're not allowing. It's like someone trying to love you, but you don't let them love you. It's not going to work out. So the more
Mhm.
surrender you go, the more you allow. You're in charge always.
Yeah. What would you say if somebody is, because I love this concept of surrender as well. Like, it's so hard for us to do because, again,
Yeah.
our logic mind up here in that prefrontal that's just trying to, control everything. And it
Yeah.
comes with good intentions. It's trying to keep
Mhm.
ourselves safe, but it doesn't always surrender to the fact that it doesn't know everything, right? Speaking of this morning, I always think about like, man, people have been here for centuries. When you really broaden your perspective, like, I am, like, literally a blip on this, like,
But a
ball
beautiful
in the
bleep.
universe? So, thank you for that. But, it is really interesting. How do you help support people, or what would you suggest if somebody is finding a hard time with this surrender concept? Is there anything that you do to help people get prepared more to be able to maybe enter into that surrender?
Yeah, so that conversation that we have before, again, I have to meet people where they are. But let me put that aside for a second.
Okay.
Literally, no matter how combative you are, the egg is designed in such a way that stuff's gonna happen.
It's gonna
So,
break down some of that.
yeah. So feel safe in the way that no matter how, like me, you were or are a slow brain sizzle and you'll fight every step of the way, something's gonna happen in there. It's designed so beautifully and so simply that something happens. So you don't have to be good at anything. You don't have to be good
Okay.
at surrendering, right? So just know that.
But just know the more open you are and
Correct.
the more you're
But the
able.
conversation before is, and again, I can't give you a step by step because
It's individualized.
it's
Yeah.
each human being
Everybody's
in front of
different.
me. Yeah. And it's also am I the right person for them? Like,
Yeah.
do they feel safe? It's really,
I'm
because at
glad
the end of the
I'm glad
day,
you said that. Yeah, because I mean, even in a therapy process, like for mental health professionals, like in kind of work I do, I mean, if somebody doesn't feel safe, I can't
yeah,
help them get anywhere. Does that make
yeah.
sense? Like you have to
Oh,
really
yeah.
develop that trust. And
Yeah.
so somebody has to feel safe with you, is what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't think you can really make that happen, yeah? It's the magic of human beings with each other and the
Yeah.
interaction and some mystery in there why it works with some people and not others, the way I speak, my angle, how I go about things, like all these things, but it's definitely about allowing some time, no rush, the place is in, like I told you, on top of a mountain with trees and a lake, and there's a lot of sound of nature, a lot of wind and the birds. So it's a place that collaborate with us to come to that place where you can, right,
And
just
arm
sort of,
yourself.
yes,
Disarm.
and yes, and then the conversation is always about what I mentioned. It's always, I heard recently that that's the tantric way to sort of dive into the emotions. And it doesn't mean you have to sit there and scream or explode in tears. It's not about that. It's about noticing, like, where do you feel the tension? Is there like something in your throat? Do you feel your solar plexus tight? Are your shoulders tight? Your lower back? Do you sit with your arm crossed in a, that means you're not feeling quite safe, right? You're protecting your vital organs. So it's about acknowledging yourself, taking the time, take a beat. And when you quietly and simply just acknowledge these sensations in your body, the body doesn't lie. And it's really the gateway. And you're just allowing that to exist. And from there, each human being will engage in a conversation or not, but the next step presents itself. I don't choose it. But sometimes they've never even allowed themselves to do that and see what would happen, to give them the permission to that, especially men. And
Mhm.
so that's what happens before. And it's very unique with each person, which is the beauty of it. And from there, we choose the settings for the egg.
Yeah. And then the egg does a little bit of its work.
The egg is energy work
Collaborate. I love how
again.
you said collaboration. I think that's a good way to think about it. Like you're collaborating with the energy that's all around us.
Yeah.
But the egg is then also having its own special, very, it sounds like very intentionally crafted from people that have really did a lot of work
Yeah.
into understanding sound healing and light healing.
Yes,
And then
Gail who
that can also,
created it.
yeah.
Yeah, Gail who created it is very well versed in all that. She did a fantastic
Hmm.
job. And collaboration is indeed where it's at. So the egg is just, it's like group work.
Hmm.
It's all
I like that. It's a
collaboration.
tool. Yeah, it's group
Yeah.
work. Except
Yeah.
for it's maybe not a human, but it's group work in a different way from sound,
Yeah.
light. Yeah.
Separating ourselves in separation is really one of the core aspect of why we ache, right? Separation from everything and everyone.
Yeah. Well, and look, that's a whole nother podcast we could
Yes.
probably do on that as well. Because you know what, as you bring up separation, one of the things that I think about often, and even in the work that I do, is that, people need connection, and we need connection
Oh
to
my
the
God, yes.
nature. We need connection to people around us. And I think the pandemic was a really good just reference point of how disconnection can really start to affect us in ways we don't even realize. Even in my
Oh,
line of work, what we started to see is it wasn't until maybe like a year or so after we were coming out of that, the kind of shock effects of like that disconnection for a period of time that we
yes.
started to see really people struggle with. And I don't think they always were able to equate in that awareness of like, okay, wait, I went through this period
Mm,
of disconnection from others, maybe. And I know some people are maybe disconnected from others in general, but like just disconnected from how community. And so then that
yes.
community then impacted them. But I think for some people, they were able to reconnect with nature during that time too,
Yeah.
and with
Yeah.
kind of a greater sense. So it's interesting when you think about periods of time like that, how
Yes, for
it
sure. There's
affected
so much
everyone
there.
differently.
So much
Mhm.
there. Yes.
Well, what is one word of encouragement or maybe something that you would like to leave with our listeners today if they do find themselves kind of in that unsettled place that you would just ask them to consider or maybe think about as they're going along their journey?
Consider the fact that the messy place that you're in is the perfect place that you're in. And as messed up and wrong as you may feel, perhaps that is the perfect place to find yourself. Perhaps trying to tell you where not to go. So, whatever hardcore judgment you have about your situation, however scared you are, this is where you can really believe that life has got your back. But life is not a human concept. It doesn't think and function the way sometimes we think things
It
should
should.
go,
Yeah.
right? Where it should go, how it should look like, where you should end up. And what your life should be like if you were doing it right, what is right. So life is not like that. It works in a completely different way. And sometimes great pain and great chaos is exactly where you'll organize your soul. This is where
Mm.
you'll find yourself. So if you could breathe and think, there's a possibility that this is perfect for me. You don't have to believe it all the time, but allow that concept in
Yeah.
your periphery.
That this is working in my favor, yeah. I mean,
Something
really, I
about
think that
that.
some of my painful times in life really ended up being it's crazy to say this, but it ended up being a gift. Because whether it was the gift I was able to see people from different perspective, or whether I was able to see life in a different way, or whether I was able to find greater understanding about myself and my strengths and, the strengths of, like, what's around me. It is really crazy because I think when you're in the middle of it, it is hard to find that place that this pain is for a purpose or I must be here for a reason and I don't understand it fully yet. Yeah.
Yeah, and part of that challenge, it's because we identify our worth through certain concepts. I am a
Mhm.
worthy human being if, and when we don't accomplish these moments, these, I didn't accomplish this, I'm not that, I haven't achieved
Haven't
this,
arrived there.
I
Yeah.
don't look like that, you know? Because you identify yourself to that, to these concepts, you're basically objectifying yourself, and women were very good at that. Because of that, your worth is in the wrong place. If your worth was really on that soul experiencing through the body, then the body is not dictating if you're a worthy person. Your look is not dictating if you're a worthy person. Your status is not dictating if you're a worthy person. The spark of God within you is your innate worthiness. And that not being a concept, but a reality is extremely comforting. And it's a battle in a way because the world is very much more and more, but it was always present. It's just emphasized right now, especially through social media, that your worth is everywhere, but in that
But
spark.
within.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying anything that hasn't been said through the ages by wonderful, amazing human beings. I'm just another one that, with great stubbornness, of course, has to surrender to that truth,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Well, and I think that we all have those points of contention, right? Where we're like, "Oh, I don't wanna go there." And I don't know about you, but for my life, any place that I've said I don't wanna go or I don't wanna make it happen, this is my path. The life tends to bring me there, and
Yeah.
I always love to live. I mean, it's interesting. The ironies aren't always my favorite, but I feel like I live in the ironies of things. It's almost like life wants to show me that what you are resisting is going to come to fruition just because, again, learning that art of surrender, which it has to come. It doesn't just like you surrender once and you're done. I think it's a
What you
repetitive
resist
process.
persists, right? And that's
Yeah.
that's back to what I was saying. Yes, what is resistance is your way out.
Mhm.
Turning and facing what you're resisting, surrendering and being curious about it as opposed to fighting it, but having curiosity. And you make it a concrete thing by thinking of relationships, right? When somebody says things that don't feel good, if you become curious about it, now you're not resisting it, you're not fighting back, you're asking why you feel that way, what happened. Like you're curious, you're surrendering, you're going with it, and then you can have a real conversation as a couple that is not this sort of fight of
Yeah.
butting heads with each other because we're resisting s- what is right in front of your face. So yes, these moments, this is back to what I was saying, whatever is the challenge, that challenge is life saying, this is what you have to surrender to. And so many beautiful outcomes will come through surrendering to this and being curious about it, and your way into that spark is through these challenges. So you don't have to travel to Peru or to Egypt. I always say that's wonderful, that's great, but you don't have to. You don't have to have money. You can just, whatever is difficult right in front of your face, if you become curious and kind and forgiving and inquire about it, that's your way in, that's your way through, and that's your way out.
Yeah, 1,000%. I agree with you. It's just a hard place to get to. It's a hard place to
Oh,
get to.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Isabel, if people are like, listen, I want to find out more, just a little bit about the work that you do, or they may want to find out a little bit more about the authenticity and the, um, even the egg that we're talking
Yes.
about. They just kind of want to do their deep dive. How can people connect with you? What's the best place for them to find you or find out more?
It's all under authenticitystressless.com. That's my website, authenticitystressless.com. You can find me on Instagram, on Facebook. I'm not super active, but I'm there and we
Yeah.
post. And we do energy work. We always have conversations. I can do distance session, whether it's healing or the harmonic egg. Of course, there's the harmonic egg, and we use crystal ball and sound healing as well. Yeah.
Okay. Well, y'all go check her out. Well, look, I just want to acknowledge you, for not only showing up today and sharing your journey with us and then how you've been able to surrender and how you found really a different way of living through that surrender.
And
But
continuing to learn.
yeah, continue.
I'm
Listen,
in
I
it
could say
too.
we could live this life 1,000 times over, and I don't even think I'd barely scratch the surface. Seriously.
Correct. I'm right
Uh,
there with you.
But I also want to acknowledge you for just kind of remaining curious. And I love how you ended with that because I do think that curiosity really does. It's one of the coolest things that we do have about us. But if we can lean more into that curiosity with that compassion or that kindness, I think, the whole world would be a little bit better place.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yes. Yeah, we're all learning that.
Yeah.
Yep.
But if you're listening and you're just like, man, I have a lot to think about and sit with, give yourself permission to sit with some of the things that you receive. Sometimes when we hear things or are learning things, it takes us a minute for us to really identify what resonates with us, what we want to take with us from a conversation. But one thing that I do want to leave with you that Isabel said is that, sometimes you just need to give the space for the spark, and
Mm.
that may be through surrender. It may be through stillness. It may be through taking some moments of quietness. But if you're listening, I promise you, there's one thing. I don't make a lot of promises on this show, but if you do take a moment to give yourself some space to be able to allow that spark and however you define it to really connect and collaborate with you, I think you'll really be able to really define what that possibility is that you're aiming for. Until next time. That's all for today on Inspiring Possible. If you found a little inspiration today, please go on over to iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you tune in to listen to leave us a comment and rate us. Also, make sure and link up with me at inspiringpossible.com to get the free Dream It, Write It, Do It workbook. And don't forget to follow us on social media and share this with anyone who needs to be inspired. Remember, if you can believe it, it's possible.